Rachel Tomlinson, Chair of ESCaD's Publicity Group, and I'm also a disabled unpaid carer. And I'm proud to welcome carers, campaigners, allies, and advocates from across the country to our event, Carers Fight Back. We come together today not just to speak, but to be heard, to raise our voices, not in anger alone, but in unity, in truth, and in sheer determination. This Carers Week, we are making a clear, urgent demand: scrap the cruel benefit cuts, end the harassment of carers over overpayments, and guarantee a decent income for carers and disabled people. Poverty and exclusion should never be the price we pay for care. Too many of us have spent years giving everything we have to support our loved ones, often with little to no financial recognition. We are invisible to policymakers. We are undervalued, undersupported, and increasingly under attack. But today, we fight back. Let's speak honestly. Carers are penalised for earning just a few pounds over the limit, punished with repayment demands that can destroy already fragile finances. We are constantly navigating broken systems, illogical rules, and the emotional toll of fighting for even the bare minimum. And now new cuts are on the table, which it looks like they're pushing ahead with. Cuts that threaten to deepen hardship, amplify isolation, and increase injustice for carers and disabled people alike. Enough is enough. Today, we'll hear from remarkable voices who are on the front lines. Paul Ridley, a full-time carer for his adult disabled children, a voice of lived truth and experience. Katy Styles is the founder of the We Care campaign, a grassroots movement led by unpaid carers. Going from her own experience as a carer, Katy advocates for better rights, recognition and support for the millions of unpaid carers across the UK. And John McDonell, MP, chair of the Labour Carers Group. John has represented Hayes and Harlington since 1997, is a leading voice on the left and served as Shadow Chancellor from 2015 to 2020, championing economic justice, public ownership and a Green New Deal. A lifelong campaigner for disabled people, carers, workers' rights and social equality. And last but not least, Jo Walton, chair of ESCaD's Carers Group. Jo's campaigned tirelessly for over 20 years for support for carers and disabled people, and none more so than her daughter Sarah. And you, our audience, will have the chance to speak too, to share your thoughts, your ideas, your lived reality. Your experience matters, your voice matters. Let this meeting be more than a discussion. Let it be a spark. We are not just carers, we are campaigners, protectors, and experts in resilience. So today we say no to silence, no to cuts, no to criminalising care, and we say yes to justice, to dignity, and to a future where social care is respected and properly funded. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. Our first speaker is Paul Ridley. Welcome, Paul.
Right, thank you for the lovely welcome, Rachel, and thank you for inviting me to speak today, group. I am a full-time unpaid carer for my two adult children, one who's 36, non-verbal autistic, epilepsy, IBS, and had depression during lockdown, and a daughter who's 33, diagnosed as Asperger's, and had a history of self-harming. Everything has always been a fight, and especially with benefits, even recently, before even the cuts have come in, we did the transgression from income support to universal credit, where I wasn't recognised as a carer. And I went to my MP, who said go to the CAB, and the CAB said go to your MP. And in the end, I went to Sir Stephen Timms, and a complaint went through. I even had to look up the regulations and quote their own regulations. It seemed the staff weren't there. Were there, didn't understand it. I took in 17,000 pages stating that my son takes 2 to 1. But they said, oh, because there's only one person can get carer's allowance, then you're not classed as a carer, even though he took 2 to 1. And if I had to go to work and whatnot, full time, then my son would have to go into a care home, which would literally end his life. And that would cost more. I mean, so I don't know what the budgeting is on that, but I challenged the DWP and won, and it came down to interpretation. And the cuts that they're aiming at the moment with PIP, my son has yet to migrate over to that, are just diabolical, especially when they haven't even got all the paperwork and all the facts, and they haven't really engaged with the carers and the disabled people. You know, I mean, I'm recognised as a carer. I don't get carers allowance. I don't get carers premium. I get zilch. So I am one of the unpaid carers that are taking the mickey, as someone once said, you know, and we care 24 hours. It's through the night, during the day. And looking at the PIP changes, my son can go out for a walk, but he needs 2 to 1. He needs watching because he picks things up off the floor and put them in his mouth. He has no sense of danger at all. He can't tell you if he's in pain. We know. And when I say he's nonverbal, I mean he's nonverbal. He won't communicate with sign language. He don't use PECs or picture cards. So we are his voice. We understand. So if he was tried to be forced into work, is an imaginary job that's going to appear from nowhere that some imaginary employer is going to hire, they would have to employ us because they wouldn't understand him at all. And I don't think the employers are going to do that. But the worrying thing is as well, when they set up rules to do with benefits, it's the interpretation by the officers, how they interpret the rules. I mean, everyone's read John Pring's book and how it's led to anxiety. And I mean, all during my recent battle with them, I didn't eat. The weight was going down again. And I've been through that before. And I don't want to go through that again. And they don't realize the damage psychologically they are doing to people, the anxiety. And my son, although he hasn't got the voice, he picks up on that and it affects his health. And one thing will then lead to another. And they just are the people going to be trained in all disabilities, the ones that do the assessments. Are the work coaches going to be trained in all disabilities? I don't understand all disabilities. I understand about my son's autism and my daughter's autism and other people's autisms, but I'm not an expert in everything else. Every carer's journey is different. But what are the council's plans? Because I don't know whether we would be able to cope. And I know many other carers won't be able to cope when the carers turn around and say, hey, okay, NHS, council, you're going to have to take responsibility. How much is that going to cost? But this is a Labour government, and Labour governments from old wouldn't be penalising the disabled. They wouldn't be penalising the carers, the ones that are standing up and holding up society. I mean, I remember Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, at a conference when he was elected as Prime Minister, saying that all carers should be treated the same way a Prime Minister is treated. He said that. So why are we being made to suffer? We want to get the carers back to work. Excuse me, do you know some carers haven't even got the time or the energy to go to work? And until they have us involved and people with disabilities involved in making decisions, they're always going to get it wrong. You know, they've got all the degrees and all this, that, and the other from uni, but they haven't got the degrees and the experience of dealing with disability and dealing with people like the DWP, where it could be on one person. My daughter was a claim in ESA. The assessment said no, she can't get it. We won the appeal and everything, but the damage it was done has now stood all this many years later with my daughter, because she won't even have a medical now with a GP. And that's the kind of lasting thing that happens when it goes wrong. And I can see suicides going up, sadly, and more people having attacks galore, and more carers turn around and say, sorry, we can't handle this no more. And this shouldn't be Britain in 2025, 2026. I'll leave it on there. I think.
Thank you very much, Paul, for that. A very clear statement of what the issues are around caring and the benefit cuts. and a very clear image of what it's like to care 24/7, 365 days a year. Can I now invite Katy to speak and tell us her experiences?
Brilliant, thank you. Hello, everyone. So I'm Katy Stiles. I'm the founder of the We Care campaign, an unpaid carer to my husband, my mum, and my mother-in-law. And like so many of you here today, I care because there's somebody I love needs me, not because I was trained, not because it's easy, and definitely not because the system supports me to do it well. So let's be honest, caring in this country today is hard. Unpaid carers are holding up a broken social care system with love, grit, and sheer determination. We are the glue that's keeping everything together, often at the cost of our own health, our careers, our futures. But what do we get in return? Praise, sometimes recognition, occasionally, and actual support for ourselves and those that need care, not nearly enough. That's the disgrace we're here to talk about. And still, we carry on because we have to. And because if we don't show up for each other, who will? That's why I started We Care 7 years ago. We're not a service nor a charity. We're a campaigning community of unpaid carers who are sick of being invisible. We work to make carers seen, heard and valued by politicians, the media and decision makers. So yesterday I was in Parliament with We Care carers to talk about welfare reforms, the lack of support and just how exhausted we all are. We know how things bad are, we live it, but we also believe in hope, not the fluffy kind, the real kind, the kind that's built in community, in solidarity and through action. And today I want to share a few ways we can build that kind of hope, even when everything around us feels grim. So 1, tell your story strategically. We all have powerful stories of doing the impossible with nothing, of being forgotten, of surviving things that should never be left to families alone. But we've learned that how we tell these stories really, really matters. We tell stories not just to vent, but to campaign, to shift power, to change policy, to wake up decision makers. At We Care, we help unpaid carers to tell their stories directly to MPs, to the journalists, to select committees, and yes, even in Westminster. Because carers' voices don't belong at the margins, they belong at the centre of every conversation about social care, health, and the economy. 2, find community, because you should not be doing this alone. One of the most powerful things we can do is remind each other that we're not the only one. That's why we run a free weekly email full of updates, opportunities, little wins and solidarity. You can sign up to that and instantly know that there are others out there who get it, who face the same barriers, who are also shouting into the same void, but doing it together, not alone. We can't fix everything overnight, but being connected, even just once a week or like this, is a lifeline. 3, use creativity as a protest. We asked carers in Wales and beyond 2 years ago to stitch onto dusters, yes, yellow domestic dusters, and we took them to the Senedd, the Welsh Parliament, because carers couldn't get to protests easily and they couldn't raise their voices. We use craftivism, stitching, creating, gently disrupting is one way to make sure that we're visible. We don't always have the time, the energy or financial opportunity to protest, but we can stitch, we can post, we can send messages stitched with care to places of power, and it gets noticed. It builds strong relationships with those that received a stitched piece or saw them. Those relationships are stronger and better than if we just sent an e-action to a politician. And yesterday we took the dusters in booklet form into Westminster. It was a record of our event and it got noticed. Gentle protests can be powerful too when you've been ignored too long. And I'm not saying there isn't a place for strong protests and actions. We need them both. 4, keep going in whatever way you can. Again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you to stay strong or just keep going like it's easy. It's not. But I do believe in us because I've seen what we can do together. We've had unpaid carers stories in parliaments, in the Senate, like I said. We've influenced policy briefings. We've had decision makers quoting our work and taking it seriously. That's not by chance. It's because carers kept showing up again and again with honesty and courage, telling their stories of carers' allowance overpayments, of prosecutions, of wrongs, even when they were exhausted, even when they weren't being paid, even when the system hoped we'd stay quiet. And John McDonell, I hope he's here. Thank you for being here. You've stood with carers before, you've spoken out, and we thank you for that. But we need more MPs to do what John's done to amplify carers' voices, to push for real investment in care, to call out the disgrace when they see it. We need allies like John and Unite. I wouldn't have got to Westminster without the support of Oxfam GB. Oxfam have been amazing partners to us. And why Oxfam? Because they fight for poverty. And up until now, that's included poverty in the UK. And unfortunately, that may change due to the cuts and change to Oxfam's infrastructure. But they've been exactly the sort of ally one needs as a small organisation. So I wanted to thank them for that. We've also not been asking for rewards or charity. We want dignity and fairness. So to everyone here today, carers, supporters, allies, let's keep building communities together. Let's keep telling the truth loudly, strategically, and together. Let's keep finding ways to hope, even when it's grim. And if you haven't signed up to our emails, just a little reminder, you can find our link on the We Care campaign website. We've got a new podcast out which explains about the dusters, which is called Caring Craftivists, which shows the power of craftivism in a political space. And just get involved in any campaign and just know you're not alone in this. We might be running on empty, but we're full of fire. And we won't stop until unpaid carers and the people we support are visible, valued, and truly supported. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katy, and thank you to whoever looked after me. Our next speaker is John McDonell. He doesn't really need an introduction, but he's just a friend of all of us. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Rachel. Katy, can I apologise? I couldn't get to your event yesterday because I was ensconced with a whole group of advisors and others who we were preparing for the spending statement. So, but I heard you got a pretty good reception and quite a number of MPs called in to see you, and which was so the event was a success in that sense. I just want to dwell on two issues really to bring people up to speed. I've mentioned the spending review, so let me just deal with that. You most probably saw on the TV and elsewhere big numbers being announced in terms of investment capital expenditure, which I welcome, and that actually the Chancellor's adopted one of the element of the fiscal rule on capital expenditure, which was close to my own that I recommended, and also there's a thing called the review of the Green Book, which I announced in 2018 it was. She's done as well, so expenditure will be more equally divided around the country. So I welcomed all that, but then I looked at the detail. They have what they call the Blue Book. It's this thing here. It sets out, it's online, it sets out the detail of expenditure department by department between now and 28, 29. And what worried me in all of that was two things. Health and social care. The announcement was there's going to be a 3% increase. It's actually 2.8%. All through my engagement in politics, not just in Parliament, but in local government, and also as a policy advisor, we were always told that because of the nature of our population, aging in particular, 3% was going to be the minimum required just to stand still and cope. And we were told last year that on the workforce plan, it would need 3.6% increase. So actually, although the numbers look big, and I welcome, to be honest, I welcome any increase after all the years of austerity, and I welcome that, it isn't going to be enough. That's the problem. And on social care, the report refers to the Baroness Katy review, As Katy said, I chair this group we put together of Labour unpaid carers. We've been desperately trying to see Louise Casey, just to have that conversation, and we've not really been given access. So we're just going to keep on pressing on that. But it worries me that first stage of that review won't report until next year. And a lot of the spending decisions will have been taken by then, and it's going to be difficult to see how that can be retrieved. The other issue, and I don't want to swamp you with figures, but I looked at the local government expenditure. Actually, local government is going to be cut by 1.4%. And the only way that they'll manage to increase that is with council tax increases up to the pre-referendum level, and also to the adult social care 2p. And again, what worries me about that, it just won't provide enough to cope with the basic levels of demand that people have around all those caring services local government provides. But it doesn't make up for the 14 years of austerity that we've had. So that's one issue I'm worried about. And so part of the discussion we've got to have now is how we lobby for better investment around health and social care and adult care overall in the run up to the budget, because I think the government's going to have to think again on some of this. The second issue, let me just bring you up to date, is the welfare cuts. And this is, and we've had this discussion, so many of us, I get a combination of real worry. I'll be honest with you, really worried about my constituents in particular, because they're the people I represent. But I'm also pretty angry, to be honest. I'm pretty angry. We've been told today that the welfare bill will be published next Wednesday. So it's what they call the first reading. Then the debate on it, the second reading, which is the general debate, will be on the 2nd of July. And we're told that the whole House, so it won't go to a small committee, it'll go to the whole House for the committee stage and report, which means you normally do that when you want to get something through very quickly. So we've got a couple of weeks now in which we've got to prepare. We'll see what the bill actually says. I'm hoping the government might have seen the light as a result of what we've been saying about the impact of welfare benefit cuts at this stage, particularly with regard to people with disabilities. But we'll have to see from that bill whether they have. And if it's anything near what they've proposed so far, I just think it'll be an absolute disaster. And I've been trying to get across to my colleagues. It's the thing that Paul said. If they just look at what's happened in the past when the Conservatives did these sorts of things, and we had all the campaigns going, DPAC, Disabled People Against the Cuts, was set up. I was at its founding conference, and it was because we were saying this will cause immense human suffering. And at that point, we said it will cause loss of life, and they didn't believe us. Well, we now know from John Pring's work and others' work, we know there was at least 600 deaths associated with the DWP and the way it treated people. And many of those, unfortunately, were people taking their own lives. And I've been trying to say to my colleagues, don't you realise you're repeating the same mistakes as what happened under the last government, and inevitably it'll have the same consequences if we don't think about it now. And I hope stop this onslaught onto the benefits. In the government's analysis, most of you picked this up, I think, in the papers that they put out. They said that as a result of the reforms, they're calling them, often governments, when they say reform, it means cuts. As a result of that, the government said with regard to PIP and benefits, that there would be another 250,000 people put into poverty, and that would include 50,000 children, and that the estimate was about 150,000 carers would lose benefits, lose allowances. The Joseph Rowntree Trust, the New Economic Foundation, and all that have done other analyses, and they've said actually you need to add at least another 100,000 people who will be pushed into poverty as a result of this. And they've also said that when the ministers were advising us on how much they were looking to save, 5 billion, there was an element of, I can only call creative accountancy. And the Joseph Rowntree Foundation have just said, actually, it's not, it's another billion on top of that. And it might even reach 7 billion. And again, these are people I've used as advisors when I was Shadow Chancellor, and I've put it back to them on a number of occasions. Are you sure about this? And they're saying, no, absolutely confident. So I've been trying to say to my colleagues, this is absolutely devastating and you've got to think again. So when that welfare bill is published, we'll get it round to everybody. We'll need people then to analyse it as they see it and see what they think the implications are. Has the government shifted, or is it the same as has been threatened? And if that is the case, we've got a couple of weeks in which we've really got to work hard to get Labour MPs and others to understand the consequences of this and vote against. I've said to the government, I can't support this. If it's anything near what they've proposed, I'll vote against. There's a large number of MPs, I think, who will make noises condemning what's happened. I'm not sure how many will vote against, but you know, even if we can't defeat the legislation, I think it's almost certainly going to be like the winter fuel allowance, where as a result of the protests that will be made in all different forms, exactly as Katy said, there's room for all different types of demonstration and protest about this and lobbying. I think it'll be like one of those, if they do force it through within a limited time period, they'll have to review it and reverse it, because the suffering is so great. And if you look at the numbers of people, particularly on PIP, we've got a large number of our MPs, Labour MPs, who are in Parliament because they were elected on relatively small majorities. And we've been trying to point out to them, often there's more people on PIP within their constituencies than their majority. And if those people no longer support these individual MPs, they will not get back into Parliament. They'll be one-termers, as they describe them. So I'm trying to say to them, there's human consequences here, but for them as well, there's electoral consequences, and they need to wake up to that. So let us look at this next week. As soon as the bill's published, we'll get it round. People can share their analyses. Then, exactly as Katy has said, and Paul and others and Joe's have been at this, and all of you have been at this, then it's a matter of making sure your individual MP is contacted, hopefully face-to-face, if not online or correspondence, to say exactly how you wish that individual MP to treat this and how you want them to consider it and vote on this. And in that way, I think we maximise the pressure. I'm hoping the government pulls back. That's the point that was made by Paul. Labour governments don't do this. This isn't what Labour governments do. So I'm hoping they actually rediscover, like the principles upon which the Labour Party was founded, which was about making sure, we built the welfare state. We shouldn't be part of dismantling it. That's my view on all this. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you, John, once again. It's just amazing, and we're so grateful to have you in our corner all the time. Our next and final speaker is Joe Walton, our amazing Carers Group Chair. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Rachel. I hope you're feeling better. Okay, I'm going to try and be as quick as possible, but we'll see. One thing I'm very good at is talking for a long period of time, and I'm not sure that everybody wants to hear it, but there you go. I'm hoping that what I'm going to say this afternoon, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad for the opportunity to speak, especially in the company of so many with personal experience in caring, disability and campaigning. And as you've already heard, I'm Jo Walton, current chair of the Carers Working Group, and for the last 20 plus years, I've been the full-time carer of my adult daughter, Sarah, who was devastatingly neurologically compromised by SSPE, a viral infection caused by the measles virus, at the age of 25. Sadly, in February, she earned her wings, and although her physical presence is no longer with us, there is a picture of her up there. Her spirit cries out for the fight to continue, so here I am. And what I would like to talk about is carers' income. And this is a start. It's a starting point, not a finishing point, but just wanted to discuss carers' income. And when I refer to carers, I use a capital C, where the unpaid variety, and not to be confused with care workers who are paid, although nowhere near enough, but that's part of another conversation. This is the start. Okay, it appears to me, through all the research that I've done thus far, that there's an acceptance that carers save the state an estimated £184 billion every year. Carers are being forced to give up work to care or reduce their hours and cost the economy £32 billion per year. Carers do fantastic service for the country, which is much appreciated and must be supported by a measly £81.90 per week, if you spend at least 35 hours doing it, but only if that 35 hours is with one person. Isn't that really a working week? Don't you dare either go £1 over earnings of £196 per week, either, or the state will shower you with debt while you pay back every penny they've given you. That, by the way, equates to about 15 hours on minimum wage at £196, which means that a household income of £1,204 a month for 50 hours work per week, £14,450.80 over the course of a year. If those 50 hours, that's the 35 hours caring and the 15 hours that you manage to do in paid work, were both on minimum wage, it would equate to £2,684.50 per month, which would be the same as £32,214 a year. It's a gap of £17,763 or £1,480 per month between those two figures. And what could carers do with that money? Where in all the documentation from government, from researchers and from charities, is there an acceptance that carers are doing work? Not a job per se, because we do it because we love and want those we care for to be looked after properly. But it's certainly work, hard work. And for those who are quite literally 24/7, 365 days a year, it's their vocation, without holidays, sick pay or a decent pension. I looked around for other vocations which involved similar terms and conditions, on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the closest I found were those who minister. Rabbis, imams, priests, vicars, ministers. I did some comparisons. This group, by the way, refer to their income as stipend. There are other ways of thinking about how to support the work that we do than the insulting carers allowance. And when I start talking figures, please remember the following. Carers do not choose to be carers. We don't apply for the work finds us. Yes, it is work. The people we care for may be people we love, but it's hard, relentless work and takes its toll physically, emotionally, and financially. We become carers at any point in our lives, from the point when we can understand, speak, and move, to the point when we're nearing the end of our own lives. The task can come on us all of a sudden, or it may creep up on us almost without us noticing. It takes away the expected lives of those for whom we care and our own lives. Nothing is ever the same. Carers miss out on the reassurance that we're able to earn what is required to keep the roof over our head, foods in our stomach, and enough to save for a rainy day. Our rainy day has actually arrived, and it had nothing to do with our planning or lack of work. It was random and it was devastating. We lose our careers. We miss out on lifelong education. Young carers in particular miss out on their foundational education, and it affects their entire lives. We miss out on owning our own home because our incomes are limited, and we may lose the house that we've already started to buy or not be able to buy one at all. We miss out on the home security with the problems in private rentals and having to have adapted accommodation. We don't get to spend time with relatives and friends, family celebrations, going on holiday, our own identity. Carers aren't workers because we neither have set hours nor are we covered by health and safety at work legislation. We aren't volunteers because we have no control over the hours we work. We do a job which is without boundaries in time, energy, and description of role. The government would find it difficult to give us a wage because of those health and safety issues and because the maximum number of hours worked in a week under the Working Time Directive. But carers do need access to national insurance contributions, works pension accumulation, the opportunity to save, the ability to take out mortgages or own your own home, or the security of tenure on rental accommodation, both while caring for a disabled family member and beyond, should that person predecease the carer. As I've already said, the closest equivalent to what we do are those who minister to faith groups. And as already stated, but also MPs, the average salary range for a rabbi is between £30,000 and £52,000 a year. For imams, it's around about £35,000 a year. The estimated total for ministers in the United Reformed Church is 22 to 24. For Roman Catholic priests, it's between 15 and 31. And for Church of England vicars, depending on your experience, it's between 26 and 29. All of those groups have the added benefit of a tied house and usually the purchase of a property to live in on retirement. Between data on what people need to live and data on the vocational ranges of salary, we're probably between £15,000 and £35,000 a year. So if we're generous to the government, we could go for £28,000, which is a midway figure, and what the Roundtree Foundation has actually accepted as a minimum that is needed to live. But we do need to add housing costs. And according to new data from Zoopla, the average homeowner in the UK faces an average mortgage repayment of £11,000. And Nimble Finns has analysed the data on rental costs, and they're between £954 for a month for private renters and £484 for social renters. So a carer doing more than 35 hours a week should expect an annual income of £28,000 a year plus housing costs, of which about £10,000 may be shared if there's more than one person in the household, plus £12,000, which is the disability premium. The disability premium, of course, is because the living costs, if you are disabled, are greater. And Scope actually found by doing their research that on average, disabled households need an additional £1,010 a month to have the same standard of living as non-disabled households. So that would be a total income of between £35,000 and £50,000 a year. It's not a wonder, is it really, that the government prefers £81.90 a week. The benefits to the economy would, if carers were paid properly, be substantial, since the money in the pockets of carers would be spent in the local economy. They would be able to survive better without benefit payments, not just the carers allowance, but related benefits like universal credit, housing benefit, winter fuel allowances and more. They would have better pension income and not need to be reliant on the state, and would have security of tenure in their own homes, so avoid the issues of homelessness. People would be happier and healthier and less stressed, and would therefore incur less costs for the NHS. It is common sense, and we really should expect nothing less. So come on, government, turn those grateful words into proper support.
Thanks. No problem whatsoever. And very, very well said. I would imagine these the information that Joe's just shared will be available to view at some point. Am I right?
Yes.
Right, well, thank you, everybody. Now going to open the floor for any of you who would like to talk. We're going to limit you to 3 minutes at the moment. If it starts to take over itself, then we know what happens, but we do welcome any contributions that you might have. So if you would like to raise your electronic hand or just your hand in particular, then we'll look out for you and I'll bring you in. Thank you very much.
Linda Edwards has her hand up.
Linda Edwards.
It was a most wonderful half an hour, however long it was. I really don't need to feed back to carers other than to say thank you. I think you're all heroes. But I would like to suggest to John McDonell, it's not the first time I've heard him speak, and I just love him for his integrity. I work with people with learning disabilities and they were doing art, and I took the phone in so that they could see him speak, because we've been talking about it, and we talk about politics a lot here and how it affects other people, not just people with learning disabilities and autism and carers, but elderly, and we widen the parameters. And I've admitted, which I would not have done before, but I've admitted that I don't think I will be voting Labour in the rest of my life. I've been a Labour supporter since I first voted, I think at 17, 18, but I don't think I will ever vote Labour again. I think they've destroyed any love, any hope. But thank you, John McDonell, for really speaking up and saying the same thing. It must be very tireless for you, but thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And can I echo that? I think John knows what we think of him. We love him too. Violet, got you next.
Hello. I'm very distressed about what's going on. But also, isn't this all a part of what's called the neoliberal economy, and the fact that this encourages the state to be smaller and not really have very much reduce the amount of money that is spent on various public sectors, because it's the market that is promoting everything. And I think it's not mentioned really nearly enough, because this would bring a lot of discontent. This will make discontent even more, and I think it's a very sad state of affairs. Sorry, I'm a bit emotional about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Violet. I have Pam Flynn next, please.
Yeah.
Just
Okay. I'll pull the computer closer to me. The microphone's not marked. I'm afraid it means you'll have a close up of my nose.
no, that's fine.
Well, you'll see after my name that I've got NWPA written there. That's the Northwest Pensioners Association, which I chair. I'm the elected chair, and we support ESCaD and its work very much. We've had speakers from ESCaD at our meetings in the past, and we want to. I think I'm okay to speak on behalf of all our members in saying thank you for what you do. I'm glad that today is being recorded, because it contains some extremely powerful content. And I also would like to thank John for your contribution, John. I remember the Labour Party, Northwest Labour Party conference before the 2019, I think it was 2019 election, when you pointed out that every single item in the then Labour Party manifesto had been costed. And thanks to the depredations of the media, that election was stolen by, and we know the consequences. So thank you for carrying on as you do, carrying on. I just want to raise the issue. You talked about some MPs having majorities that are less than the number of people in their constituencies who are on PIP. Here in the Northwest, and in particular in Greater Manchester, we have an MP who is currently suspended. He was a minister, and when he was a minister, I talked in other fora about the democratic deficit when your MP cannot sign an early day motion, cannot ask PQs on your behalf, and so on. And then somebody loses the whip, and lo and behold, interestingly, we find individuals parroting the formal Labour Party line in correspondence to end. We have a lobby group here, which Jackie Hadfield, who's probably online, runs for us. She wrote to our MP and received the official Labour Party line on all of this. So thank you all for telling the truth. And the more of us who can get ourselves creatively into the headlines, the better. And we know from the winter fuel about turn, and we mustn't call it flip-flopping. This has been brought about by campaigning and anger and results on the doorstep. So, you know, let's carry on carrying on, and more power to all of our elbows. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pam, and those words are very much appreciated along the way. Next I have Laura Collins.
Hi there, thanks very much. And thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to Paul and to Joe and to Katy and to John. And thank you for your comments, John, at the rally on Tuesday evening. You have a great wealth of stats. I just want to read you a few words from the rebuttal letter from Liz Kendall to Debbie Abrahams. We've consistently been clear that we are not consulting on every proposal. Instead, Parliament will have the opportunity to fully debate, propose amendments to and vote on areas where we have announced urgent reforms that are not subject to consultation. So effectively, we're having imposed cuts. So I would ask John, that he's mentioned about it being published next Wednesday and the debate on the 2nd of July, if you could say some more about the parliamentary procedure and what you think we actually should be able to do in that short fortnight time frame to actually get our messages out, and if there's any particular hashtag for carers, because Protect PIP is so important, but I think a lot of people don't really aware the knock-on effect for carers. Thank you.
Have I still got John? Would you like to come back in, John?
Yes, if I could.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the kind comments, by the way. I'm really grateful. But there's a lot of us here. I think quite a few people behind the scenes who are working really hard as well. We wouldn't have the ammunition to fire if it wasn't for all yourselves as well, feeding us the briefings and explaining your own position. If I go through the parliamentary process again, this is what I understand so far, and I've tried to get it confirmed, but this is what I understand. Next week, the welfare bill will be published. So it's called the first reading. It will just be published. So we'll have sight then of the detail of the bill. I don't think it'll be very long. I think it'll be a small bill, but we'll see. Then on July the 2nd, the second reading is just a general debate. So that gives us the opportunity to put pressure on individual MPs to express in that debate what their constituents are telling them. So if we can mobilise both in the constituencies, people can write to their MPs, I want you to raise this in Parliament, I want you to explain what this means to me, I want you to explain the implications for our area. I think that's important. All the national campaigning bodies doing the same thing, preparing the briefings again, contacting MPs, organising lobbies, all of that. That's really helpful. Then it goes into committee. And as I said, we've been told, this might not be true, but we've been told it'll be a committee of the whole House. So all MPs will be able to move amendments and have the debate on particular topics. Now, when we see the bill, there might be the opportunity to get agreement across a number of the voluntary sector organisations and with campaigners, etc., about a number of amendments. Some of the amendments can be ones that they'll be denounced as wrecking amendments, but for example, one usual amendment is to delay the implementation of any policy until there's further reports to Parliament or more consultation or whatever, triggered by other things. So there's amendments like that. Then there'll be others who want to move amendments that sort of ameliorate, soften the effects of anything the government's doing. And there might be some bottom lines on all of that we can agree with people. That's the process that we'll be in, but it looks as though what the government is trying to do is speed this through as quickly as possible. So that, and you can understand why, because they want to limit the time upon which people can campaign and influence their local MPs. But whatever it is, the time they're given us, we've got to really intensify all of our activities. Remember, it then goes off to the House of Lords. So once the Commons is dealt with, it has to go to the Lords, and we'll have the lobbying opportunities on a number of the members of the House of Lords. And it'll be interesting to see the reaction in the House of Lords. I think there might be quite a strong reaction as well. They won't be able to defeat the bill, but what they can do is include amendments themselves. And then, as you know, what happens is, if the Lords amend it, it comes back to the Commons, and then we can have ping pong for a while. So there's an opportunity now for us to try and get the agenda properly debated and influenced. And my objective is to defeat the proposals. That might be ambitious, but I think that's what we've got to aim for. But if we can't defeat them, we've got to try and ensure that their effect is minimised. But I see this as just the first staging post. On the winter fuel allowance, a number of us voted against it, and we warned them how bad the reaction would be, and they've had to reverse it. I've said to them, many of them, that actually, if you think the reaction to the winter fuel allowance was bad, you wait till you see this one, because the winter fuel one was about a benefit. Of course it was, and it did affect people, and it did put some people at risk. But this proposal puts large numbers of people at very, very severe risk. And as a result of that, I think we've got a really strong argument for shaking them up and saying, if you are going to push this through, we will keep on campaigning and campaigning until you reverse it. So that's the strategy I think we've got to pursue. Sign up as many people as we possibly can to assist us in all this. Again, there'll be a number of the organisations that do the number crunching will come back with more detailed research that demonstrates how preposterous these proposals are. And again, one of the arguments they'll come forward with is how they're going to, invest £1 billion in getting people back into work. Well, I've been talking to PCS, the trade union, who represents the staff that are meant to administer all this, and they're saying there's no way that the DWP is ready, although they're preparing for the implementation of legislation. There's no way they've got the staffing, there's no way they've got people trained up, and there's no way they'll be able to do it effectively in the timescale the government is looking. So overall, we've got to be saying to the MPs is that you're going to put a lot of people through a lot of suffering, Some may well lose their lives. You're going to have disastrous electoral consequences for the individual MPs and for the Labour Party overall. And at the end of the day, it will fall apart through really not being able to implement these sort of proposals in the speed the government wants. And as a result of that, it won't have the effect that the government wants on this level of savings. Now, they save their face on the winter fuel allowance by saying, well, the economy is a bit better, so we can afford this. Well, we can say to them, actually, well, if you think the economy is going to grow, then you don't need to do this, do you? Because you'll have the money to be able to afford decent benefits for the future. So that's the sort of strategy I think we need to be pursuing at the moment.
Thank you, John. I know there was, just interrupting, there was a talk of them putting it through as a money bill as well, which would mean it wouldn't go to the Lords.
I think they might try that tactic. I've not heard yet that that's what they're going to do. If they do that, I have to say, it will cause uproar and it will cause them more problems. It will consolidate more MPs voting against it because people will see it so undemocratic, basically. So if they do that tactic, and it could come open to challenge as well. If they try that, a number of us will be going off to see the Speaker and challenging the whole process itself. It would be seen as so anti-democratic. Again, I say to some of the ministers, you're going to lose all credibility on this. Don't they realise that? They're all thinking, well, get this over with now. We've got another 3 or 4 years before the next election. I'm saying to them, people don't forget this sort of stuff. They make their minds up now and it becomes unforgivable, you know. Anyway, they're the arguments we've got to push forward, certainly.
Thank you, John. I think I had Marianne next.
Hello. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I just wanted to share a bit about my story is I've become a carer for my elderly father who became very ill after contracting COVID in hospital. I guess, like so many people here, been very badly let down by the systems that were meant to support him. The local long COVID clinics won't even see him. And it's been a fight trying to get funding for his care because he very quickly had to use up his life savings because he needed such a high level of care afterwards. I just wanted to, for people who, and I don't know yet in ESCaD, I just wanted to make them aware of, there's a campaign that I've started, which is to reform continuing healthcare funding, because I think that could be a vital piece of the support that's potentially there for people with many long-term health conditions. And one thing I've certainly been struck by is the disconnect between social services and the NHS, even though apparently there's meant to be, liaison between those two things. And I guess I wanted to reach out to two people who are here in particular, Katy Stiles, if it would be okay if I got in touch with you after this meeting, just to talk a bit more about the campaign, and Mr. McDonald, if it's okay if I get in touch with you to talk more about it perhaps one day. I know I'm not your constituent and I don't know what the rules are about that, but if that's ever possible, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. Marianne, we'll work out how to get mine. If you go on our website, We Care Campaign, there's a contact form and you can just send it and then I'll get in touch with you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. I've got Max James next, please.
Hello, can everyone hear me okay? Sorry, I'm new to this group and I'm not doing great today, so please bear with me. I just wanted to thank you for putting this webinar on and allowing me to join. It's always great to link into other groups and organisations that are all singing from the same hymn sheet and doesn't make you feel quite so isolated. really valued what the speakers have had to say already, and particularly Joe Walton, regardless of your lost track, it really didn't come across that you were lost at all, Joe. It was really clear, and your experience is incredible evidence to put forward. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask if ESCaD as a group or organisation is part of the coalition that is forming with the roadmap to independent living on the independent living group. I don't know if anybody else is part of that, but I've joined that via being a disabled person with employing my own PA carers through direct payment, and they are a community-led organisation which is now pulling together a coalition of all different groups, and rather than doing death by 1,000 cuts, which by all different organisations, they're trying to approach the situation with a more powerful voice, a more effective voice by everyone, all of us coming together under one banner so that we can hit harder rather than, as I say, death by 1,000 cuts, which is very rarely proven effective in history. So that was a question. If anyone can confirm that, that would be great. If not, there is a separate group. It's separate from the ILG community, which you have to be an employer of PAs under direct payment to join, but the coalition and the roadmap is pulling together nationally lots of disability activity groups, and it doesn't mean you don't have your part. Everyone's treated equally, but that might be something worth linking into if you're not already. My daughter has been a young carer. I basically have worked for over 40 years of my life and have found myself in this situation only 6 years ago. And my daughter has been a young carer for me since she was very young. So I can see it from both the carer perspective and the disabled person perspective. And I have seen the impact on her and her education and her life. And despite fighting desperately to get her the support that she needs, I've literally got nowhere, and I'm still in the middle of a review which has taken 2 years so far to try and get her hours replaced by a funded PA or carer, because she's trying to go to university in September, and she will literally be gone. And they have been told 2 years ago that this was going to happen, but they are still, even on my last assessment and review in January, are still saying there's no need to replace her hours, that she cares for me. And they are literally going to wait until I have a crisis before they even think about addressing that issue, despite being told over 2 years ago that this issue was raising its head. So, and I'm just constantly exhausted with the fight and falling on deaf ears. Adult social care, and now I'm having to put a formal complaint in because they literally will not write the documents carefully to reflect her needs. They've never done a carer assessment on her despite requests, and the whole system is completely broken. I think what Marianne said about continuing healthcare funding, you know, they tried to push me down that road. That failed because I don't fit their criteria despite needing reasonably high amounts of hours. I've got recorded meetings with adult social care and about how they have a statutory number of hours that you're allowed, and that's their norm, which is totally against the Care Act of 2014. And actually, they are continually breaking the law under the Care Act. But the problem I'm trying to look at and try to step back a little bit is I've been trying more recently to get a grasp on where is this coming from. Like, fighting individual policies is fantastic, but actually there's an underlying message here that now in our all the government parties, political parties seem to be now centrist under one banner without actually displaying that. And there seems to be an underlying message of, if you're a useless eater, as they call us now, if you're now disabled or you're elderly and you're a pensioner and you can't work and be productive in society in that way, then you are not wanted in society, you are not valued in society. And that message seems to be driving this. And I feel that that comes more from a globalist view, the WEF, WHO, all of those people that are pushing, particularly people like Keir Starmer, who has outrightly acknowledged that he will listen to Davos more than he will take care of the UK. That underlying drive behind government, and I'd be really interested to hear John McDonnell's view on this, because he's right there in the hub of it all. But I've learned recently, very disappointingly, that I cannot trust the media narrative. We don't get told the real picture now anymore. I used to really trust the BBC and that they were independent, but I've actually sought independent media now, and I've found that far more useful and informative as to what's really going on behind all these agendas to get rid of the useless eaters in our society. It doesn't seem to matter whether you've worked all your life. I've served in the military, I've served in the police. I am not a person that's sat there and been on benefits, as they seem to try to tag us all with, that, you know, I've worked up until the point my body literally gave up. So I've served my country, I've worked since I was 16, and here I am in this position, having paid into the system like many of you, and that you should not be having to rely on your family, or you be relied on as family members to put in that effort and put in that care, and see that your family's lives are getting destroyed, as I watch my daughters getting affected by the needs that I have. And I think the introduction of the assisted dying bill, what's happening in Canada with MAID, it all ties in. And I think we have to start thinking more globally how to tackle this, and more nationally than in individual groups, because this problem is way, way bigger than we are even seeing. And the narrative that gets pushed out, they tried it in the 40s and 50s, saying, and there's videos you can watch on it, that if you repeat a narrative often enough, people will believe it. And the divisive way they're turning us on each other is the most difficult thing to overcome, but it is the fundamental part we have to get around to make this different, and to avoid some sort of horrible revolution that will happen if this carries on. And I don't know how John feels about all this, but this has to come from a single voice. So I just wanted to do that, and also say that I really don't get the PIP welfare cuts, because when you look at the percentage of fraud that they're saying it's going to save so much money, the percentage of fraud in PIP is virtually zero. So number one, why target PIP when there's virtually no benefit fraud in PIP, because it's so damn hard to get in the first place. The Back to Work initiative and tagline is absolutely pathetic and unachievable. There is no infrastructure out there in the workplace. I know so many disabled people, including myself, who would love to work.
Can I wrap you up, Max?
Yeah, sorry. I just throw that all out. That's the last thing. But thank you so much for today, and the evidence that you guys have and can bring is so valuable. So please, if you can link in with the coalition and try and add weight and strength to that single voice, that would be amazing. Thank you. Sorry, it was a long time.
No, thank you. Well, all contributions are welcome. I'll bring John in at the end if he's still about. Anna, please.
Sorry, I was just getting my thing on. Thank you. Thank you to all this. There's four speakers, sorry, at the beginning, and everyone who's spoken since. I've been in this business for I was doing a reckoning, 59 years. It's too long. Things should be better. They're worse. It's dreadful. But there's an absolutely amazing people doing amazing things. So 3 very, very quick points. One, John, forgive me, my memory is absolutely hopeless. If you could, when you speak, give us the exact name of the bill so we can write an effective letter, that would be helpful. Thank you. 2, I'm interested in trying to get statistics on all deaths of disabled people through whatever means. Those of you who know me know that I lost my son through a completely avoidable accident at his nursing home, and I know of at least 21 others in that category. It's one tiny category. I'd be really interested to hear from anyone who would like to attempt to get some fuller figures to cover all of it, because I think figures do speak. They need the story, but they do speak. And the third thing, actually, Max, you've actually sown the seeds of what I was going to suggest. I was going to suggest, could we have a conversation about the idea of an alliance, a coalition of all the groups that are dealing with disability issues? Because it's a comparatively weak group. You wouldn't think so listening to the people today. There's unbelievable strength in this one group alone, and I'm sure that's echoed in every other group that exists. But I always think the more of you there are, the stronger the voice can be. And the idea of a coalition or an alliance that links all the groups that have a particular brief, I think could have huge value for the public, having something which they can think, oh, that's the group of disabled people, not just one of hundreds they keep hearing about. So thank you, Max. And you spoke very powerfully. It's great to hear some new voices. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Anna. Can I bring Brian in now, please?
Yes, thank you very much. A wonderful meeting, and thanks to all the speakers. It's fueling my anger and frustration, this meeting, and I'm trying to stay very slightly optimistic. The question I have is for John. There is a comment in one of the articles in The Guardian which says that Reeves she's already announced apparently that they are reviewing the criteria for accessing PIP. And then she also says, we will substantially be increasing the amount of money we're paying in sickness and disability benefits during the course of this Parliament. Do we have any information about any of that? I didn't know that she said she was reviewing the criteria. I mean, does that give us a window of access to what we might be saying, to lobbying? That's one thing. And the other thing I wanted to say, thank you very much, Max, for your contribution. Could you put any details of this coalition in the chat? We are linked with ROFA, and so I'm not sure if that's the same organization as you're talking about, but it would be great if you could put details in there, and if you're willing to put your email in, that would be great. And then we could stay in touch with you more easily, or I can, we can put one of our emails in there, and you can contact us if you would like to.
Yeah, that's fine. The chat's disabled at the moment, I think.
Ah, yes, it is probably. That's right.
I think we can get it enabled if Lucy.
Yep. Chat's just opened, so that's great.
Thanks, Lucy. Anybody else like to say anything, or can I go to John while he's still here? Well, we've still got him.
Jackie's got her hand up.
Oh, Jackie, have you got your hand up?
Yep.
Apologies.
I have to put it down. I think John's better than me.
You can have your 3 minutes.
Come on.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to thank John for talking about PCS. I'm a member of PCS, so the Associate and Retired Members Group, and I recently attended their conference that John spoke at. I'd just like to say that we did have a really positive meeting of a fringe meeting after the conference called Fighting the Welfare Cuts, and there was a wonderful member of DPAC there, Andy Mitchell, who spoke quite poignantly about the impact that it is having on disabled people, the prospect of having assisted dying is a real deep concern to people, as they feel that if the cuts do come in, that would be an option they would take up. Our president of DWP spoke about the importance of having PIP for people who require it to get to work. So it's not actually forcing people into work, as the media seem to be saying, but it's helping people to work if they can do. But there's so many people who can't, and our union will continue to fight the cuts. They've pledged to do that. And it's, didn't realise what John said, that there is a concern, obviously, about they cannot be ready in time. But in fact, I don't think they want to be ready in time either, because they don't feel it is appropriate to do this. And it will destroy so many people's lives.
Thanks, Jackie. Martin did with Arise, and John spoke on that the other night, and that was incredible. That was a really good event, and will be available on YouTube if anyone wants to catch up on that one. Jo.
All right, just a quick one. I don't know whether any other Unite communities have gone down this line, but our Unite community, Yorkshire, and Leeds, Wakefield, and York, have actually done the calculations on how many disabled people are likely to lose their PIP in each of the constituencies, and fed it onto Twitter and Facebook. So anybody in that area that wants to retweet or re-X or whatever it's called now, if you go to look on Unite Community Leeds and Wakefield's page, either on Facebook or on Twitter, you'll be able to get the statistics from there that you would require to challenge your MP.
I believe it's on Leeds DPAC as well, Jo.
Right.
I believe I've seen it on Leeds DPAC. Can I bring John back in, please?
Just on the bill, all we know so far, it's a WhatsApp message from Andy McDonell, MP, who is one of our members of the Socialist Campaign Group, is exactly that. Welfare bill published next week, first readings, and the second reading on the 2nd of July, and committee of the whole House. If that is the case, that actually means they might not be able to turn it into a money bill. Anyway, we'll dig out more information. I've just WhatsApped Andy to say, have you got any more information, and where's the information coming from? So as soon as we get info, anyway, we'll get that round to everyone about the process. But that's what we know so far, and we won't know the actual full title of the bill until it's published. And again, as soon as we get that, we'll let people know as rapidly as possible. The government have done this on a few contentious issues where the release of information is pretty late. But again, we're just going to have to be on our toes all the time on all of this. With regard to what Max was saying, it's important not to get into sort of, some of the debate is political, and we need to carry people with us as much as possible. But my view on all of this is that Violet mentioned neoliberalism. We went through a period after the Second World War where people had learned the lessons of the 1930s and the Second World War, and we needed to construct a society in which was more equal, and at the same time provided the basic essentials so that people could have a decent quality of life. And to be honest, my generation is the one that's benefited most for that. You know, I was born in Liverpool off Scotland Road. My dad was a docker, my mum a cleaner, and we lived in what is now in sort of the history of books is described as one of the worst slums in Europe. Well, we just called it home, but what the welfare state provided to us was a council house, you know, decent house, Parker Morris standards, garden front and rear, and it was just a huge day of celebration when we moved into that. And then Labour created the NHS because people realised that there'll be many in society who can't afford health if it's not provided free at the point of need. And for my generation as well, all the way up to university, we had free education. And it was what's happened then is that, and this is political, I suppose, with the election of Margaret Thatcher in 79, the new theory was exactly as Violet said, which is neoliberalism, which is basically the market knows best. The market and the private sector will always deliver this hidden hand of the market. And to ensure that the market could provide, there had to be deregulation, and part of that deregulation was the undermining of trade union rights, and part of that deregulation was the privatisation of public services. And that's what's happened. So that's why council houses were sold off. And in my constituency, we've got a housing crisis because our council housing has been sold off, and that money hasn't been used to build new ones. And privatisation of the NHS, social care was provided by local authorities. And again, our argument should be integrated into the NHS, and the same principles, free at the point of need, paid for through taxation. But now, as a result of what's happened in the last 40 years, because of what, as Violet said, neoliberal ideas dominating, we've had a scale of privatisation and cuts. And this idea that there has to be a small state, it means that successive governments, including some Labour governments as well, have looked at how they reduce the role of the state. And that vacuum, as it's reduced its role, that vacuum has not been proved successfully filled by the private sector. And we've had some horrendous examples of that. This government, I think, has learned some of those lessons. So we're bringing rail back into public ownership. I wish they'd bring water back into public ownership as well, to be honest. So I think it's that dominance of neoliberal thinking that's happened across Europe and the United States, and also parts of the globe for the last 40 years. But it's proved to be a failed experiment. And so that's why people are rising up at the moment to say this isn't working for us. And what we need to do is have a society which is more equal. And the best way of bringing about that equality is to make sure we don't have extremes of wealth and poverty. And that means a fair taxation system. And we desperately need decent public services. And actually, the state has a valuable role in providing those public services. And we've got to learn the lessons of the failure of the last number of years, particularly the austerity years, because the argument was that if you introduce austerity, you cut the role of the state, there'll be private sector investment and our economy will boom. Well, that's not proved to be the case, because under austerity, we never had the investment either in our infrastructure to grow the economy or in our public services to make sure that we had a fully fit and skilled workforce to enable us to grow that economy. So they're the arguments. I don't want to go on too long, but they're the arguments, and that's the reason I think this has happened. In many ways, it's trying to say to the current government, just learn the lessons of the failures of this recent period and think again, because every time you come along and you cut the welfare state and you cut benefits, it actually undermines the very foundations of our society in which we can have a decent quality of life. But even the economic argument is that you undermine that welfare state, particularly the health service and social care. You undermine our ability to even have an economy that can be sustainable for everybody. So they're the arguments. I actually think in the campaigns that are waging at the moment, people are coming to the same conclusion. And Max has said one of the good things is that people are coming together more and more on that. And yeah, in terms of the media, people are using social media. There's a lot of conspiracy theories go on. Some of it is rubbish, but there's a lot more independent media now, which is good. I watch Novara media quite a bit as well, and there's even independent stations now that are broadcasting more effectively. And again, it's a lesson for us really in our campaigning now, is that we've got to use that social media and that independent media as much as we possibly can, sensibly and accurately. And in that way, I think we can win the argument. I'm going on too wrong, Rachel, here. I'll shut up. Okay.
I could listen to you forever. Thank you to everyone who has joined us today. Four amazing speakers. And everyone who's joined afterwards. Your voices, your stories and your strength, they matter. We made it clear carers are not invisible. We're not expendable and we will not be ignored. We demand dignity, not debt, support, not suspicion, and a care system that works for the people who live in it, not just those who manage it. Let this meeting fuel the fight ahead, as we keep continually saying. Share what you've heard, support each other, and never stop speaking the truth. Because together we are louder, we're braver, and we will not back down. If you'd like to join our carers group or find out more about ESCaD, please leave your details in the chat and we'll be in touch. For anyone who would like to see the replay of this video, it will be available on YouTube within the next few days and sent out as a link at that time if you're on our email list. If not, please do join us. Thank you. And we will keep going because it's what we do.
Well done.
And I just thank Rachel for chairing it so well.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel.
That's
Thanks
really,
ever so much.
really great, and all the contributions.
Yeah.
And just to say that if you tick the box when you registered to say you want us to keep in touch with you, you will automatically go on our supporters list for feedback.
Yeah, well done, Rach.
Yeah, well done, everybody. It was great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. And a lot of people have stayed till the end, which is a good sign of a good.
It is.
And thanks to Lucy for running the meeting from Keep Ranchers Public.
Rachel,
we've run it between us.
Rachel, I didn't respond to Brian's point about Rachel Reeves's statements yesterday. Brian, I'm mystified as well because I don't know what she was referring to in the review. I'm hoping against hope that she's reviewing what they first put out, but I'm not sure if that's the case. So I don't want to raise people's hopes on that. We won't know until we see the bill. Okay. Thanks, Rachel, for chairing. It was wonderful. Good to see everybody.
Thank you, John. Good to see you.
Thanks ever so much, John.
All the best now. Take care,
to everybody
everybody.
else.
Bye, Joe. Bye.
All the best.